All right.
Today I'm here with Captain Hapa, streamer who I've been a big fan of pretty much from day one. Obviously, you and I know each other pretty well. I know the answers to some of the things that I'm going to ask you, right? So we'll just kind of like keep it more conversational. There's going to be a lot of folks on YouTube who maybe aren't familiar with you, maybe even some people, in chat live here tonight who aren't. So I just kind of want to like have a chat while we highlight your work, if that makes sense.
Sure. That sounds good.
Awesome. So let's just kind of like do introductions, right? Like, so who are you? Like, how do you describe yourself and kind of what you do?
Hello. I am a streamer. I play Starcraft, and we have a great time. I also I'm a Diamond 2 Zerg, so a lot of my stream is kind of in a similar vein as yours with a kind of improvement and analysis side.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I just want to show good games for the fans. I'm trying my best on the ladder like everybody else out there. It's challenging, but it is always rewarding, and I have a good time streaming. I'm really enjoying it. I mean, I've been streaming for I just hit a year in September, so it's it's a real thing now, I guess.
Congratulations, man. Actually, you anticipated the next question perfectly. Yeah, just over a year. That's awesome. It feels to me like it went by so quickly. Like it feels to me like you just started yesterday, but like I've seen your stream evolve too, to where like, okay, I know that it wasn't just yesterday, but I couldn't quite put my finger on exactly how long it had been.
Yeah, it's also funny too. Like as a streamer, like you have like old clips saved, and like when I look at them, I'm like, I am a little baby boy in these clips. Like
Yeah. Yep.
it's completely different, you know? Um, but yeah, I am new and improved, I guess, every day. So
Yeah, I have memories of myself in the very early days, right? I'd be discovering some aspect of like streamer tech, right? That I didn't
yeah.
know about before. And I would like try to go tell the streamers that I thought were cool at the time, be like, oh, check out what I just discovered. And they like just wouldn't answer on Twitter, like, who is this idiot? Right. Like those are I think my worst flashbacks to the olden days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow. Okay, so now that we've kind of, done the like top level introduction, right? I feel like in StarCraft, um, you know, it's almost like every single different stream, because they're all so high quality, right? Like everybody has a little unique angle, right? Like they've got their own kind of a thing. So how do you think about that? And like what stuff have you tried to emphasize with your stream, to really find your own voice?
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the things that is really great about streaming is that you are the captain of your ship, right? So w- it's all up to me, right? I am the creative director, I am the schedule manager, I am everything. And that gives you a lot of control, right? And like for me, establishing, what I consider for myself to be quality is it's a process,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of go through it and you kind of I mean, I watched Twitch for a long time before I streamed, and a lot of StarCraft streams, a lot of non-StarCraft streams, and Twitch is full of ridiculously amazing people in all avenues with all sorts of like different vibes or quirks or just memes or anything. So for me to be like, oh, I can like try to do my own thing or try to make it unique from what I feel like I excel at, or just really like what stream would I like to watch the most. And I think that's something that just really helps me be like, is this funny? Do I think this is funny? And usually the answer is yes. So like that's totally fine for me. And I'm really enjoying it. Like it's fun, man. It's a blast. I knew it was gonna be fun, but I didn't really know it was gonna be like this much fun.
Nice. Wow, that's actually not one that you hear that often. Yeah, but I feel like I get that feeling when I watch your stream too, right? Like there's the authenticity piece and like the enjoyment of what you're doing, but it's like yours is like ramped up a little bit from what's normal. Like I think it's just because you're like super hitting your stride right now. And this is like, I don't know, foreshadowing because I'm gonna dive into this later, but like um Yeah, this is why when I was like, oh, like I am a one-handed gamer, like what can I do that would be cool, right? And then I thought, okay, I used to do interviews. I really enjoy doing interviews. You were like the first person that popped into my mind. Like, oh my god, I got to do
Oh,
that Captain Hoppa interview. He's popping off right now. He's having a blast. So it just feels like the timing's really really good. So okay, let's talk about before I do that, one more. I just thought of this. So you said, like, I want to make the thing that I would want to watch, right? And I feel like that is like streamer wisdom that I wish I could go back in time and give myself, right? Because I did a lot of not that. I did a lot of like second guessing myself, like what do the people think my stream should be, right? Like, kind of almost like
yeah,
imagining the chat judging you in a weird way, right?
yeah,
And now I'm like, oh, well, duh. Obviously, I have to do content that I think is good, right? Like, so right now, like one of the things that's a struggle for me is like I don't just want to cast replays. I don't want to do 4 hour streams on Saturday worth of me just watching other people's games. I'll get bored, and the content will be boring because I'm bored.
yeah.
So I feel like if anybody out there is a little baby streamer, or you're about to be a little baby streamer, there you go. There's your wisdom from the heavens. Captain Hoppa just laid it out for you. You got to do what is fun for you. My other question, I guess, and I'm going to try not to do this too much because I think with me and you, we might ramble for like 10 hours if the chat doesn't stop us here.
Possible.
Um, do you laugh at your own stuff when you're either clipping, reviewing highlights, editing? Like, do you get yourself?
All the time.
Yeah, me too.
All the It's not anything I would have imagined, but when like I think we've had a conversation about this exact thing, but it's like when you stream, your mouth is just on and it just goes, and like you're reacting in real time to stuff like weird things in the game, or like, oh, my unit died or whatever, like, and you're just going, right? But then like even those little things, those little reactions, when I watch them back, they're funny to me. And it's like, yeah, it's my own sense of humor and I'm just hearing it back to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize I would actually like laugh at myself the way I do. But it also, like, from a like content perspective, it's, you got to think your own shit is good, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
if you don't, it's very challenging to, take pride in it and be like, I made this and I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely something that is a new experience for me. But hey, man, you gotta, if you're not enjoying your own bits, then it's probably not a good bit, right?
Yeah, and I think also like there's an aspect of building up your stream community of people who find, those kind of commonalities with different facets of you, right? And if you are projecting or portraying a you that is inauthentic, then you're building a community that doesn't map onto you as well, right? So like the best thing that you can do, and it's so funny because it's so counterintuitive, is like do whatever the hell you feel like, because you're going to end up making a community and a stream that is self-sustaining because it's less work to do and it's more fun for you. Welcome in, by the way, everybody coming from Holly's stream. We are just a couple of questions in here to this interview with Captain Hoppa. If you're really curious and you need to get those other questions, you'll be able to get them off of the highlight after the fact, and this will go up on YouTube like tomorrow too. But we basically have just kind of done introductions and the who the heck are you kind of thing, and yeah, we're gonna dive into some more. So let's talk about like your origin story in Starcraft, right? So how
Yeah.
did you like get introduced into the franchise, and then from there we'll go into like the streaming part. Like how did you decide to start streaming? Because they're kind of two separate journeys, right?
Yeah. So first of all, I love this question. I think everyone's like StarCraft story is like super interesting because it can be like literally anything, but it's always different and always interesting. So I love this question, and I had already thought about it, but I love saying it. I say it on my stream all the time. So basically, I when I was a kid, I was a Mac gamer. Sounds surprising, I know, but it is a thing. And if you're not familiar, Blizzard
Yep.
is was the only company that ever bothered to even make releases for Mac computers. So just that existence of Blizzard doing that made me into Blizzard as a youth.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember very distinctly too. Uh, being bought the giant like war chest Diablo 2 Brood War bundle at Costco. It was like huge. And I played the campaign. I had a blast with it. And then just kind of messed around in custom games as a kid. And I had an enjoyable experience. And then Wings of Liberty came out. I bought that around release probably, and played the campaign, and then put it away and never thought about the game for I don't know, until about 3 years ago. um, but I finished the Wings of Liberty campaign, and then I think this was like I was like unemployed at the time, and like it was the Legacy of the Void ad campaign that that actually got me like, oh, that's a game, and it's a hard game if I remember correctly, and from there it just kind of I started looking at tutorials and all that, and it brought me into the competitive multiplayer. And as far as having a main game, having a main game like Starcraft is unbelievably cool for me. It's for me, it's like having a game that you can put a lot of time into and you still get value out of it is pretty amazing for me.
Interesting.
It's
So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's not like, other games where it's like, yeah, you play hours and hours and hours, but it's the same thing over and over,
Hmm.
right? And part of that is the 1v1 aspect, which I truly, truly love. And I think that's a big part of it as well.
So, had you not played another game prior to, really going hard in StarCraft that was, I guess, so I call it a time sink casted in a negative light, but I can't think of any better way to say it. Like anything that
Yeah.
would really soak time in that way.
I mean, I played WoW back in the day,
Okay.
and I think that's the ultimate example of like grinding to grind.
Hmm. Hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I like grinding. There are games I play that I love the repetition because it's just like I don't think I hit this button and I continue to hit this button. It's still satisfying to me. But StarCraft it's just a whole different animal, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I did a lot of MMOs in my misspent youth. Um, and it kind of like I eventually did the like take a step back and realize that it's just a giant hamster wheel, right? I'm getting actual nothing out of it, and I could do the same grinding to like, I don't know, get smarter or stronger in the actual world instead of like in a digital world that might literally have the server turned off. And that actually happened to me a couple times too before like
Yeah.
the realization happened where I'm like, oh, like this MMO literally no longer exists, and like the fact that I was awesome in this world doesn't count even. Um
Yeah.
yeah, so it's definitely a different beast when you're sinking time into StarCraft. Okay, so what about like the transition to streaming? And then I'm also kind of curious because you said you watched a lot, beforehand. Did you watch a lot of StarCraft before streaming, or did you start watching after you started playing?
Yeah. So I think I'll start with the streaming part of that one. So like
Hmm.
um making the all right, actually let's go back. Let's go back to me watching stuff on
Okay,
Twitch first. So
sure, yeah.
like I went to YouTube, I typed in StarCraft 2 beginner guides, whatever. I got Winter's channel. Winter is he's the one who brought me to Twitch in the first place, right?
Mm,
Because all of his tutorial videos are just a straight copy of his Twitch stream feed,
mm-hmm,
So like I hadn't seen like alerts going off or anything like that ever before, right? But I used those guides to improve myself as a beginning player, and you know, jump cut a couple weeks later, I'm giving him my Twitch Prime, So
mm-hmm,
that's what got me into Twitch, and from there, you just kind of get exposed to uh, all these other streamers and different people. The other thing I'll say is that me starting to get into StarCraft was also coincidentally just right on the same mark as the Pylon show starting. So
really?
the Pylon show started probably after I'd been playing for like 2 or 3 months, is the first episode of the Pylon show. So that also just like immerses me completely into this world of StarCraft. And It definitely, like, I was already like into StarCraft at the time, but it welcomed me into the world of StarCraft. And I listen religiously to this day.
Hmm.
Um, and it's one of those things where it all just kind of came together, and um, I've been having a great time on Twitch. That's how I got to Twitch. Um, and then the other thing I'll say that also mentions the Pylon Show is that they had a couple episodes, maybe one in specific, where it's just the streamers talking.
Hmm.
And one of the things that was really amazing for those is that those discussions that they had with, Jeff and Neuro and Winter and all of these guys sharing their different yet similar experiences.
Hmm.
When I started streaming, I felt like I had a very good understanding of how to start streaming and
Hmm.
how to, it's the lame advice of like how to be yourself, like just be yourself. It's like, well, yeah, that's good advice, but it's also like you got to put it in context.
Right. Yep.
Um, but again, when I decided to do it, I felt like I had all of the tools already known to me. And I definitely couldn't have making that change from being, a consumer of content to a I can't believe I'm saying these words, a creator of content,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
no, that totally makes sense. You sniped another one of my questions too. That was we were about to go there. The fact that you and I both actually share this sort of history where we came in and the streaming game and particularly the StarCraft streaming game was like well established, right? Like the sort of prototype is there for you to take it and be like, okay, this is like kind of sort of how it is, right? And you could do some of this or you could do some of that, like here's what's on the menu, and then you bring to it whatever is your own, right? So it's almost like the way I think of it at least is like, okay, most of like the like grunt work is already done, right? I just like do that thing, right? And then I like make it cool in a way that is reflective of me, right? It sounds like you really kind of took that to heart. I would say actually hearing the way you just described that way more than me. Um and actually that's probably given you a lot of momentum, right? Like you it sounds to me like you've placed your focus on all of the exactly right things and you've really leveraged like the existing wisdom.
Yeah, and again, it's all because of these people have had these wonderful discussions about it, right? And
Mhm.
like, the way Winter approaches his stream is going to be different than the way Neuro approaches his stream, right?
Mhm.
But both have meaningful experiences with however they decide to do it, right?
Mhm.
And like I said, I felt like I knew things before I started that, I mean, I know there's a learning curve and you're going to pick up stuff along the way, of course, like with anything, right? But I felt like I had something to be like, this will be my thing and I will stick to it and I will, do hours at this schedule or whatever. And you got to kind of set these kind of guidelines for yourself. At least
Mhm.
that's what I did for me, and I think it worked pretty well.
Awesome,
Still
yeah.
ongoing.
Right. Like the way that I started off this question was like totally booby trapped. Like I asked you like three questions and somehow you managed to like create an answer out of that. So I'm sorry that I did that to you. Um, the last part that I'm curious about is like the decision to be like, okay, I'm going to start streaming. Like, what did that part look like?
So uh, it's it's challenging. It was really having a reflection of being involved in this community of StarCraft, which is fantastic and amazing. But also just being like, what? How do I get involved in these conversations?
Hmm.
Right? How do I provide my perspective? Because here's the thing: I love the Pylon Show, and I also there was a time where I had a huge commute, so the 4-hour Pylon Show was like the best.
Hmm.
I would listen to the whole thing. It was great. I truly enjoyed the length. But it's also like I'm sitting in my car listening to this and I'm like, I want to say something about this thing that they are talking about, like I have something to say that is, not just, oh yeah, I agree, but like I have like actual things I want to say.
Hmm.
And that was really something that I was like, okay, well, I here we go. Like how do I do this? And the real life answer is you just got to hop in and start doing it. So that's what I've been doing.
Very, very cool. Welcome in, by the way, everybody coming from NeuroStream. Boy, the raids are just coming left and right for Captain Hoppa today. Love it. So we're maybe about a third of the way through here. If you know missed us, you're just coming in from the raid, and you want to get the first little chunk. Who's Captain Hoppa, what's he about, all that kind of thing. You can catch it on the highlight, or I'll have it on YouTube like tomorrow night around this time. But yeah, welcome in. Wonderful to have you. Thank you, Neuro, for the support. Really appreciate it. Okay, so actually, this is a great time for them to come in because the next question's a little bit of a reset. Um,
Sure.
I I want to talk about you have this very sort of mindful approach to learning. And I want to deep dive that. I've got a million bullet points beside like just this specific question.
Sure.
Um, so let's just start like at a really high level. What is your approach to learning StarCraft 2 and improving your play?
Um, okay, so I honestly, this topic, I can talk about this topic for like hours.
This is where I
And
knew,
and
yeah,
if you come to my stream, I'm happy to do it like unfiltered.
right.
But I'll just explain a little bit of background about myself. So I have a background in sports medicine. Specifically, I'm an athletic trainer, and that's what all of my schooling was for. So I have a lot of background as far as like things related to skill acquisition and improving performance and motor learning, which is the science of how you learn to shoot a free throw, how you improve your free throw, what makes a beginning free throw guy different from an expert guy. And so I have a lot of this knowledge that I constantly reflect upon my everyday life.
Hmm.
When I was in school and learning a lot about these subjects, I was also really active doing judo. And so I took all of these motor learning principles and I would apply it to my judo practice because judo, you're learning all of these different throws and pins and maneuvers and different physical feats. Um, and it's just, it's me applying that, but I'm applying it to StarCraft. So there's a lot of different things, but there's a lot of different ways to improve. But I think having the focus and having the ability to kind of focus on certain things that you're trying to improve, right? And
Hmm.
that's that's the challenge with StarCraft because there's a million little things you can focus on.
Yes.
I personally try to get, big picture stuff, right? So
Hmm.
what's the biggest benefit for the least change, right? Um, and as someone who's been in Diamond for a while, it's it's challenging because everything has become so incremental,
Right.
right? To get out of Gold League, I just made 55 drones and just walked across the
Yep.
map. And it worked great and it was really fun.
Hmm.
And now it's like the margins are so very thin,
Right.
it's very different. So that's what I'm trying to do every time when I hit the ladder button. It's very scary all of the time on the ladder. It's always challenging. It's always something different. And you just try to not make the same mistake twice. Try to make what you can work and play it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Okay. So, having sort of established a feel for that, I'm curious. Do you have like specific goals or thresholds in your mind, either as a player or as a streamer, right? Because we're kind of like the way that we're going through this discussion, right? I'm so curious about like both halves of you as a StarCraft person, right? Because you very much kind of done them concurrently. So are there like certain things you'd like to achieve? Is it just like I want to max out as much as I can these things? Like, are you prioritizing one over the other?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of the whole creating things on the internet where it's like, yeah, I look at my numbers and stuff, but I also actively don't look at
Hmm.
them.
Yep.
Because if you look at them too much, you just kind of go insane. So there's kind of finding that balance. And it's also kind of similar for StarCraft in a way too, right? Um, you can have games that you lose that are still productive losses,
Mm-hmm.
right? And uh, even in streaming, you can have streams that are lousy, but you'll still maybe learn something from
Mm-hmm.
it. And it's also just my stream. It's very focused on improvement and kind of channeling that. So they kind of go hand in hand, but they're also separate. But
Mm-hmm.
I also want my MMR to go up, but I also kind of want my views to go up, but
Yep.
I don't want to think too much about my MMR or my views.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got to kind of find the line between that.
It's like you hit the start button, you hit the Q match button, and you just hope something good happens somewhere across the different endeavors that you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Okay. What about, things that maybe are, trade-offs between the two, right? So, for example, if you really were just like, I want to get the most ladder points possible, you could probably turn off your stream and get like a couple more at least, right? So how do you kind of reconcile that aspect of it?
So, I mean, it's a balance, right? And because my stream is focused on improvement, as long as I feel like I'm improving, I'm probably going to have a good stream, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they definitely go hand in hand that way. The other thing is that, so one of the streams that I watched back in the day, like all the time, was Game Time.
Mm.
Um, and even like stylistically, as far as like unit comp and stuff, I watched him so much, man. I really, and I got to watch him grow as a streamer.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, there were times where he was so good at reading chat, it would ruin his game. And he's playing at a grandmaster level, right?
Yeah.
So for him, he had a super engaging stream, which I loved. But then he also really wanted to perform well, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're GM and you're not playing at GM quality, you don't feel good about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he definitely improved that over time and got way more comfortable doing both. But it's hard, man. It's
Yeah.
hard to wear both hats.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of it is, if you're streaming StarCraft, you pretty much have to wear both hats,
Mm-hmm.
and it's rough sometimes. But I definitely feel like I'm a lot better at it than I was when I started. I have a like 2 minute rule of thumb, like the first 2 minutes of the game, hatch gas pool, ling speed, whatever. I can do that reading chat, no problemo.
Mm-hmm.
But as the game increases, my vision narrows upon the game.
Yep.
And I feel like a lot of StarCraft viewers are pretty understanding of that. Um, and it's a pretty realistic expectation.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's a rhythm thing, and you got to kind of feel it out and kind of go from there.
Yeah, gosh, I resonate with like just about everything you just said in that answer. So like yeah, the notion of, you have these streamers that you watched before that are like really good at reading chat, and you think, "Oh, okay, I'm going to stream. I want to like do that too." For me, so okay, you kind of made me feel really old with your answer, right? So, for me it was like, "Oh gosh, like M Canning and Uppetry. Holy shit, can those guys read chat, man?" They're like, it's almost like they're just like, "I am here. I am here hanging out with you, chat. By the way, there's StarCraft happening on this monitor, but I am here with you." And you wonder, like, how could this even be, right? How is it possible? I'm impressed that your level of reading chat in the early games goes out to 2 minutes, because if I do it, I can get the first couple of buildings down, but I will for sure supply block at 23 if chat is saying something interesting. Every time. Every single time, dude. Like,
Yeah.
and I know it. And I'll be like, okay, so I'm just going to talk to you for a minute, chat, because I'm going to supply block at 23. And then I'll get on a roll and I'll supply block at 23. It doesn't matter like how much awareness I have. But in any event, yeah, I remember when Game Time started, and it was like he was counting his streams, right? He's like, stream number 7
Yeah.
or whatever. And so to hear you say like, "Oh yeah, I looked at Game Time," and he'd been streaming for a while before I started, I'm just like, "Oh God, put me in the grave now. I'm an ancient streamer." But at the same time, I feel weirdly like the middle child, right? Because there's all these guys that were there way before me, right? That like had the blueprint. So it's so interesting, like to hear that. Okay, so along this this sort of trade-off, right? Between, the streaming, the laddering, like trying to get better as a streamer, be funny, trying to improve your games, have this improvement focus. How much do you play on stream versus off? Like, are you streaming every game you play?
Yeah, so I just ladder on stream. Um, I'll occasionally, if someone really wants to do custom games, I might do it on my day off. But
Mm-hmm.
pretty much most of the gameplay I do is on stream.
Mm-hmm.
I will say one of my favorite practice tools is the empty custom game.
Yes.
Um, it's something I really enjoy for a lot of different reasons. Um, Mainly as it allows me to get my build down without any interference from anything. No external, right? It's just internal.
Right.
It's me and my drones and my queens and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're getting supply blocks with nothing happening, what why?
Yeah.
Like that's
What's going
that's
on?
kind of my reasoning behind it. And
Yeah, yeah.
um it also kind of relates to like a musical kind of background, like
Mm,
practicing the guitar or something like that.
mm-hmm.
It's just you working on you, right?
Right.
What your opponent is potentially doing doesn't really apply in that situation. And
Mm-hmm.
I love the repetition, and I love how you can kind of get a build to feel smoother just
Mm-hmm.
by doing it a bunch of times. And just mechanically, rhythmically, like it all kind of comes together for me in the custom game.
Yeah.
And if I do, even if I just do like 2 or 3 custom games on my day off,
Mm-hmm.
when I come back to stream, everything is just better and I
Yep.
win games.
Yep.
um,
Yeah.
and I think we've kind of talked about this too, but it's like when you're if you were to play StarCraft when you're having an active conversation with someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you're like listening and responding. When I do the custom games, it gives me enough practice so I can talk to people
Mm-hmm.
while my hands still do the things that they're supposed to do,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Just like someone playing the guitar who's singing at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of multitask motor plus thinking kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's usually what I do, but pretty much every ladder game I play is on stream these days because
Mm-hmm.
ladder's exhausting.
Right, yeah. Yeah, Adraseth likes to use the example of like driving a car, right? Like you're driving a car, you're checking like 3 different mirrors, you're using a directional, you're doing stuff on the radio, and you're probably talking to somebody in the passenger seat, and all of that is fine somehow. But it wasn't when you learned how to drive, right? At first, you're like, I gotta look over there, I gotta look up here, I gotta look over there. Hey, holy crap, I'm just trying to change lanes. Like, how much stuff do you want me to do, right? But you kind of know where everything is, and you just kind of intuitively do it. I definitely should do this more. You've almost kind of you give me the guilt trip to kind of go back to my roots because I used to do this, right? And as you're saying it, it's like you're stacking thing after thing after thing on my brain of like, yeah, he's right. It does work that way. It did feel good when I used to do that. And it almost feels like you're unleashing it on the stream, right? It's like I did the work. I know that I'm better than the last time I hit the go live button. And I know that I'm better than the last time I clicked, find match too. So it's like I'm gonna go, wreck somebody because the number that's beside my MMR does not reflect my skill because I've been training, right? And you didn't necessarily need the ladder to do that. You've just been in the hyperbolic time chamber, like putting in the work. That's
Yeah.
that's definitely a good feeling. Do you ever have the thing where it's become so fluid that you're just like, even with your opponent messing you up with that added factor, you're still just like, I know that I need more supply right now. And I didn't even look up at the corner. I just know from the feel of this, like I need more supply or I got to take a gas or whatever. You just have the feel of it.
Yeah, so the way I describe it is that like when you're in a game, right, versus
Mm-hmm.
an opponent that you are just who knows what they're doing, right? A lot of that mental energy goes into what are they doing? What are
Yep.
they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? And when you're thinking that thought, your hands just kind of need to be doing their thing while you kind of process the next step, right?
Mm-hmm.
I talk about it like there's a lot of moments in StarCraft where you have to kind of shoot from the hip, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the luxury of like lining up your shot, getting
Mm-hmm.
the target in your sights, taking a big deep breath, breathing, and then taking the shot, right? You just got to turn and you got to shoot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost instantaneous and it's very instinctual.
Mhm.
So when you have this foundation of this repetitive activity that has just been automatic, right? Not getting supply blocked, hitting your injects. Like when it's automatic, that frees up the mind to be like, oh, maybe I should consider this as an option for my opponent.
Mhm.
And it's also like this happened to me the other day where it's like I'm playing a game and I'm in the game and I'm like, wow, I have never been in this situation before ever. Let's try this. And
Yeah, yeah.
like and it worked and I won.
Was this
But
the is this the Viking thing?
uh, no, not specifically,
Okay,
but
okay.
I don't remember what game it was, but it was a weird one, you know?
Mhm.
It's just one of those it's scrappy and it's, weird economy and I'm just like, I think this is my priority. We're going to go with it and we
Mm.
do it and we win. And it's just getting that kind of turn and shoot without thinking about it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because a lot of times just being like what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? You're just going to be too slow in StarCraft. And that's
Mhm.
kind of the reality of it, you know?
Yeah, do you struggle at all with I don't exactly know how to frame this. So let me the only way I can do it is by an example about myself. So for me, the skill that you just outlined, right, was very, very, very difficult to even begin the process of acquiring. And I think the reason why is that I'm very, very fearful of being judged, right? Just like systemically in my life as a person, but also as a streamer, right? And so the idea that I would do the thing you just said, where it's like I'm going to shoot from the hip, I just feel like I gotta make stalkers or whatever, right? And then I'm going to lose the game, and chat's going to be like, "Well, dummy, like why did you do that? Obviously, you needed phoenixes or whatever, right?"
Yeah.
Was that a struggle for you, or is that just intuitive?
Um, I mean, I think that's a common thing for Twitch chat and
Hmm.
like Twitch chat's gonna Twitch chat,
Yeah.
and a lot of the times, like it's hard to manage sometimes, honestly. And the thing that kind of gets me is that like it's so I go Roach Ravager a lot of times in ZVT, right? And I get a lot of people who come in and they're just like, that's bad against bio, right? And I'm like, yeah, like yes, yeah. It's like you need Banes, and I'm like, no, I'm just gonna do it without. And they're like, that's bad. You shouldn't do that. And I'm like, well, I know it's not perfect, but it has a window. Like
Hmm.
you can definitely make it work in situations, and like there are situations where yeah, you're probably already dead, but it's me making a choice to say this is the unit comp I'm gonna do in this matchup.
Hmm.
We're gonna try it. We're gonna
Hmm.
see what happens. I will put myself in different situations and try to play it out, right? But it's also for me part of being a improving at StarCraft is committing to whatever it is you're going to do and committing all of the way
Yeah.
until it works.
Hmm.
Um, and if you don't do that like ultra commitment,
Yeah.
you're never gonna because you're gonna be pivoting out of it every time, right?
Hmm.
So how are you supposed to pivot effectively and efficiently if you can't commit to it to kill your opponent, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Um, and that's something that I really try to do, and learning new unit comps and stuff like that is definitely a big part of that. And for Ling Bane, it was the same exact thing for Ling Bane. I was like, man, I just died to Ling Bane. My
Yeah.
opponent applies a mild pressure of Ling Bane, and my drones get blown up. How do
Mm.
I beat this? Well, I'm going to get 2 bases, I'm going to get 22 drones, and I'm going to Ling Bane all in every game.
Hmm.
And I did that, and now it's just part of my build. I just put a little light pressure in there and see what I can get done. And now I have a lot more experience like pivoting out, right? Pulling
Hmm.
back, being more conservative. Oh shit, he's got a wall. Okay,
Right.
let's do something else.
Hmm.
Um, and I think something as being like a macro Zerg, right? You want to be flexible and you want to be able to kind of evolve and change. Because we've all been in a game with a cannon rusher that
Hmm.
goes beyond the 7 minute mark, and all of a sudden they're not in their element anymore, but
Yep.
you are,
Right.
right? And it's because they are really good at the first 5 minutes of the game, but if
Hmm.
you survive it, it's your game, it's
Mhm.
your battlefield for you to control, so I think it's challenging to have this diverse set of skills, but it's something I'm really enjoying, in StarCraft.
Yeah, very cool. I particularly like your point about sort of normalizing the game back, right? Whether it's you getting aggressive first or, somebody's cannon rushing you or whatever. Like, I think the degree to which um that comfort that you described exists, right? The like, oh, okay, we're past 5 minutes, it's my game now. I actually think you're underrating yourself a little bit there. Because I've talked to a lot of people about that in particular, and many of them have said that was a difficult skill to learn. For me, it's like I'd say I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. It's like a medium difficult skill for me. But that feeling of ownership, right? We're past that 5 minute mark. You're screwed, right? Like I own this now. We're on my turf.
Yeah.
It sounds like maybe that's a superpower for you. I'm kind of curious about you've kind of talked about like this very like I'm gonna do the training, I'm gonna put in the work, right? I'm kind of curious if you know, given that mindset, have you toyed around at all with like the volume of your training, your practice, or even frequency or any of that kind of stuff in terms of whether it's the empty customs or even just your streaming schedule?
I mean, my streaming schedule is pretty normalized, but that's mainly because that's something I've decided for myself to have a successful stream. So,
Yeah.
I start at around the same time and I, try to go for about 4 hours.
Hmm.
Um, After 4 hours, my brain turns to mashed potatoes and I can't play StarCraft anymore.
Yep.
Or, you just do stuff where I'm like, oh, I forgot link speed, the most
Hmm.
important upgrade of the early game.
Right.
And it's not fun for me to play at that point very much anymore. So that stays pretty much the same. I don't really keep track of the volume so much anymore. Also because it kind of ebbs and flows with the stream, right? Like if
Hmm.
you're having a great stream, yeah, I'll go to 5 hours, whatever. Like
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm chilling. But then it's also like I do remember there was a phase when I was still really learning like basic mechanics, and for that I did not have a lot of time to play, and I would only ladder on the weekends.
Hmm.
But on the weeknights, I would try to get in like 1 to 2 custom games, right?
Hmm.
Try to max out in 10 minutes, and spend 20 minutes of my day just doing that,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And that I think that repetition goes a long way. And it really goes a long way as far as keeping it consistent. And then, the ladder's on the weekend. So I'm ready to kind of apply myself in this crazy world of people doing weird shit to me.
Yep. Yep. Totally. Okay. So along those lines, right? How do you kind of manage your time between dumping a big 4 hour chunk into StarCraft, spending time on like streamer stuff? We haven't really talked that much about this. We will get there. You put a lot
Sure.
into your production too, and then obviously there's life stuff too, right? There's work in every other aspect of your life. How do you kind of manage all of that?
I mean, so it's pretty challenging. I do think like for me, when I stream, like I've been like I'm gonna set rules for myself,
Hmm.
and one of those rules is shoot for 4 hours.
Hmm.
Some days I'll be under, some days I'll be over, but that's what we shoot for. Um, and you know, it's also just again, this is all like stuff people on the Pylon Show has said, and I've
Yep.
internalized as like my own skill set, but
Hmm.
it's there. So like it's also just like knowing when you got to take a day off, like
Hmm.
being
Hmm.
like I am not in the capacity to stream. So, hey, I'll have one day less this week, but for the sake of my sanity and my quality, right? Because you want to perform at a certain quality, right?
Right.
I'm going to take the day off, and you have to kind of make that executive decision, and
Hmm.
it's definitely part of it. And a lot of it is just kind of by feeling, right? I have guidelines and I have rules, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, we got to do this, but I can also make myself not do it.
Hmm. Hmm. How many days a week are you streaming right now?
I am streaming 5 days a week right now.
Wow, so you're 20 hours, an actual part-time
Pretty close.
job.
Pretty close, yeah.
Man, oh man. Yeah, You're grinding, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, it's one of those unforeseen benefits of the, corona times is I
Yeah.
have more time available. So,
Hmm.
I'm you might as well dump it into something productive, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I guess in that vein, many of us were spending like an hour driving every workday anyway. So it's another hour for StarCraft, right?
Oh yeah,
Cool. All right. So I want to circle back just briefly to kind of deep dive. And this is more me indulging myself because I'm super curious.
sure.
You talked about hitting these Ling Bane aggressions in ZVZ, right? And kind of struggling with it. And I'm curious if your decision to practice that a bit yourself, right? It's like I'm gonna throw this aggression out there and kind of see, right? Were you doing that more because you're like, if it's hard for me, it'll be hard for the other human too, and I bet I'm gonna get some ladder points? Or was it more like, I need to get better at this. Let me make every game look like this so I can get better at it, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I mean the real thing is it's a control thing, right?
Mm,
So me watching other streamers, make Ling Bane every game and being like, "Oh, they just control it really well."
mm-hmm.
And Ling Bane especially, like you have to learn how to use two control groups. Like
Yeah.
there's not really another way to do it other than making two control groups and doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was like, this is an essential competency that I need to learn. Like as a Zerg, macro or not, I still need to learn how to micro this situation
Mm-hmm.
because it happens in every ZVZ, right? So, but what I didn't realize is that I would learn to love it, and it's part of my build like every game now.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
because I really enjoy it, and then I'm also like, oh, I never die to like wonky roach timings anymore because I have lings in their base and I see the roaches coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of these added benefits, and it's a different level of activity, and yeah, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, very cool. It's in the handbook of like basic Zerg self defense, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Okay, so I wanted to dive. I'm glad kind of mentioned your professional background because I'm super curious to pull on that thread. I know we've talked before in the past. I know you do a lot in terms of like hand-eye coordination stuff and like, stretches, and I feel like I even remember you talking to me about like literal eye muscle stuff, and like that blew my mind because it would never occur to me, right? Um, I'm curious, like I don't know, like maybe I should leave it there and then I'll ask more stuff. Like, do you have stuff just in general that would be interesting to talk about there?
Sure. So like, this is one of my areas of expertise, but it's also like it's challenging to make it appealing to a StarCraft specific thing
Mm-hmm.
without giving you a lot of definitions to start, right?
Ah, yeah,
The
yeah.
definitions are pretty like intuitive. Like when you hear them, you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also there's a certain like working vocabulary that kind
Mm.
of helps with it.
Yeah,
But I'll try to do the simplest summary of it. So
yeah, totally.
this there's a whole science of motor learning, right? And motor learning refers to how human beings learn skills, right? And so when you say skills, you can mean pretty much any activity, right? That's throwing a baseball, that's dribbling a basketball, that's playing the piano, it's typing words on the keyboard, driving a car, anything. Anything you physically do is a motor skill.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you can take the principles of motor skill learning and improvement
Mm-hmm.
and apply them to all of these skills similarly,
Mm-hmm.
right? The skills you so like a beginner who's learning how to shoot free throws, right,
Mm-hmm.
will have certain characteristics of a beginning learner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same with intermediate, same with advanced, right? Those characteristics, if you change the skill to like uh I'm bowling,
Mm-hmm.
those characteristics stay the same, right? The
Mm.
characteristics of a beginner, intermediate, and advanced.
Okay. Yeah.
Any skill you can think of falls in the same template, right?
Okay.
Um, and what makes it weird for StarCraft is like 1,000 things at once,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's also a very challenging game in the fact that you have to interpret a lot of the information that's in front of you. So it's a very high, like, perceptual skill,
Yeah.
right? You can kind of break down skills into more emphasizing different domains, right? Some have more of a motor focus, so like the physical action.
Hmm.
Others have more of a perceptual focus, right? Like
Okay.
reading a defense, being an air traffic controller. Like you have to perceive things very well.
Hmm.
And then the other one is a cognitive component, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you have to think about your moves. So like chess is an example of a really high cognitive skill, right?
Hmm.
Because you're just moving the piece, but you're thinking about it, right?
Hmm.
So every motor skill has those three components, and StarCraft has all of those in all sorts of different things, all at once, all in different situations, all together.
Right.
So it's really pretty pretty insane when you start breaking it down like that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's the basics.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so cool. I love that because I've like as somebody who plays a lot, right? I can intuit what you just said, right? I have the feeling of like, wow, my brain and my body are highly engaged in a wide array of the different kinds of things that they could do or be good at, right? I have that intuition. I never, until you just said that, right? Never had any vocabulary behind it to like explain why, right? And you say it to somebody and they'll be like, oh yeah, I love chess or whatever, right? And you're like, no, like you don't get it. It's like that, but more. There's other pieces too, right? And you can't quite as a layperson, right? I don't have the terms to be like, no, look, like really, StarCraft is special. Let me tell you why, right? So yeah, that's fantastic. Okay. So I want to try to avoid backing you into the corner of like, having to say really hard to explain things in a super succinct way because that's incredibly difficult. Um, I am curious about. So I know that you do a lot of these, drills and different things, and I'm curious specifically like how much of that is for a competitive edge versus other considerations, like for example your longevity as a player, right? Are you targeting everything? Is there do you get one more than the other?
Um, it's kind of both, right? And
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
also like I think efficiency is kind of the goal as well.
Yeah.
Because you want to try to do things that have a great impact, right? With
Hmm.
minimal effort as well. So it's and, and it's like for me too, like in my focus goals when I ladder and stuff, you can choose to focus on really big things or you can choose to focus on really small things. And
Right.
honestly, both of them have their benefits, right? If I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna inject, and every time I inject, I'm gonna look down at my mini map,
Hmm.
right? That's a really small thing, but it's a really important like mechanical motion, right? To link those two together. Versus like, oh, I need to get better at getting my three base saturation, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Both are super, super important, but you could probably only focus on one of them, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
If you really want to improve upon that skill. Um, and it's challenging. And some days I just want to play.
Yep. Yep. Cool. Okay. So changing topics a bit. I'll take it easy on you. I've been grilling you hard here on the the sciencey stuff. Um, let's talk about memes
Sure.
because this is I have not I've been a poor interviewer in the sense that I have not highlighted this aspect of your brand, your personality, your live stream. And I remember, gosh, I don't know if I came in, right when this stuff was fresh or if it had been going for a while and I just hadn't come by. But I remember I came to your stream one day and all of a sudden there was this refresh, right? And I'm watching videos of salt being mined while you're AFK, and I'm watching, there's stuff, there's banelings rolling across your screen, and stuff that I'm like, holy crap, man, nobody has this stuff. Captain Hapa, like, whoa, dude, I gotta up my game. So, like, when did this start? How did this start? What, how many hours are you spending in the lab, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as scientific as some of the other stuff, but it's from being on Twitch, man. And
Yeah.
like, there's so many cool people on Twitch, and StarCraft and otherwise that do hilarious things, and it makes me laugh.
Mhm.
So for me, a lot of it is me being like, "That's really hilarious. How can I make that StarCraft-y?" You
Mhm.
know? And there are just it's and it's just, the ideas, they come in spurts, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
I'll just have an idea where it's like, oh, you know what I want to do? I want to make a scene where it's a church and Cyril is at the center of the altar and we play Gregorian chants in the background, just as a bit. Like, I want
Right.
to do a bit, and it's a fun bit for me to do. And like, I can talk over it the whole time. And it's fun. It's fun for me. Like,
Yeah.
if other people enjoy it, like, that's awesome, and that's the goal, but it's not the driving factor, right?
Totally, yeah.
um and yeah, I just and like, I made the artosis meme that I put on Twitter,
Yeah.
where it's him doing his unban requests. When I was making that, I was just laughing the whole time I was editing it, because I thought it was the funniest shit in the
Yep.
world. And honestly, I'm super happy with how it came out, because I think it's hilarious. And I'm very proud of it. It's my magnum opus of StarCraft memes. But anything that has artosis, being salty is top notch stuff. So
Right.
um, you know, I just try to be funny, and they're not all gonna be winners, but you got to try.
Mhm. Yeah, that totally makes sense. That one in particular was so good too. Like it's almost like I I would have taken I would have looked at that source material and said, how could this be any better? Right? There it can't possibly be refined to a purer and funnier state than Artosis unbanning guys in the chat, right? And somehow you were able to extract the essence and purify it and strengthen it even beyond that. If anybody has not seen that video, I think you got an Artosis retweet out of that deal, didn't
I
you?
did, I
Yeah.
did. That was the goal and mission accomplished. And again, I'm like, you know what? If I make Dan laugh and I don't get any views, I'll still be happy.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I think you got that and more. So yeah, if
oh yeah,
anybody hasn't seen that, please go look at Artosis Twitter and find it, or go dig it up off of Captain Hapa's. Very cool. Okay, so all right, I have to ask, with all the stuff you've made, like how deep is the stack? Do you have like hundreds of things you haven't made yet, or do you burn through them as you make them? You said it kind of comes in batches.
yeah. So, like, I don't know. I have like it's more of like a loose tier system, and
Mm-hmm.
like the ones that are really good, I'll just like
Yep.
you just make them,
Yep.
right? And then I have a bunch that are like C grade, where they're like good but like not great, and like maybe I need to keep chewing on it for a long time. But they may never make it to their full state, but
Mm-hmm.
they're also kind of there. um but again, like that one, I woke up that morning and I was like, I need to make this.
Yep.
I need to, and I was like, I'm gonna make it, and Dan's gonna see it when he's having his breakfast. That was my goal. And, like,
Oh man, yeah, I know. I'm laughing because I know this exact feeling, like both the tier system thing, right? Where it's like, yeah, okay, I've got it. I don't know. I've had some ideas that are like, yeah, it's all right, that have been sitting there for months now, right?
yeah,
But I also know the one where you wake up and you go, I know what I must do.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, I am merely the conduit through which this meme must flow, right? Like
yeah.
I've been
Our
chosen.
muse Artosis.
Yeah. Yep. Very cool. Yeah, so along these lines, right? Like, getting that big retweet, like I feel like that's just one example. But there are many, right? There are, big raids and stuff that you're getting pretty recently. Like from my vantage point, having watched you for the last year and change, right? Like I'm like, finally, this guy's getting the recognition he deserves because he's putting in the work, right? And like, I don't know, I'm biased a little bit because your stream is my cup of tea, right? Like the mindful approach to learning, and the like, this is what it's like if it's a Zerg at my level who's trying kind of, a similar vein to what I'm doing, right? In terms of learning process. And so it's like super up my alley, and I'm very biased, but I'm just like, it's about damn time this guy starts getting the big retweets and the big grades and whatever. Um, this isn't even a question. I'm just talking at this point. I'm really happy to
Thank
see
you.
it. I guess. Okay, I'll turn it into a
Thank
question.
you. You're
Let me.
flattering me. No, let me say one thing.
Okay,
Let
yeah,
me say
yeah, yeah,
one
yeah.
thing. Everything that I do in my stream, I would not be able to do if I didn't see your stream and go
Oh,
like, "Wow, he's doing that? That's that's cool." And that's kind of how I would want to do it if I ever did it, which I'm probably not going to do. That was me like in the past being
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
going to stream. But like just seeing it in action, I was like, this is a vibe. And I think we have very similar like cerebral approaches to the
Mm.
game in certain aspects, because it was a big, you know, motivating thing where I'm like, you can do that, like he's not GM, like what, why is he what?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Wait, you can
um
stream if you're not like already good? What?
yeah, and like I can like this is enjoyable to like watch someone improve, like it blew my mind at the time, you know, and it definitely helped me feel realistic about being able to stream, right?
That's awesome, man. Really, really kind of you to say. Um, okay, I figured I was able to like turn it into a question at the last second there. So let me try to do that. Save my blabbing. Um, okay, so now that that stuff is happening, right? Now that the big raids, and I don't know, I just know that a couple of them have happened recently. I don't know how many you've gotten over the past year. Um, but I guess the question applies either way. Like, has that changed things for you in any way, whether it was long term, like your view counts 5 or 10 more on average than it used to be, and also in the short term, like just like, holy shit, there's 400 people in my chat, what does this feel like? I'm curious about any of those that you want to talk about.
Yeah, so I mean this is I kind of had an impression of this like just being on Twitch,
Yeah.
but I don't know if like you've experienced this, but if you're ever in a big stream and they raid a really small stream and it's a really great person who's streaming, but like they're not ready. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're not ready. And it could be even something as simple as like their alerts are wonky or
Mm,
like their mic is like clipping or something. Like
yeah.
it could be anything. But I told myself if I get rated, I want to be ready,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
I want to be seen. I want to be heard. And like, you know, you can't just stream and be like, oh, maybe I'll get rated today. No,
Right, right, right.
you just gotta stream and you gotta just be ready. And if it
Mm-hmm.
happens, it happens. If it doesn't, well, you're probably gonna stream tomorrow, right? Like,
Yep.
and I think that's something that I try to, you know, be aware of because it's also like, you know, you might only have 10 seconds for that person to look at your stream.
Mm-hmm.
And if your mic is weird, it's less, it's
Yeah.
1 second, you know? So just having that kind of established, I think is a big deal. And even though I'm saying this, I don't think I was ready for my first huge raid, which was like Beastie Cutie, which was like 800 viewers or something like
Wow, yeah.
that, like pushed me into affiliate or whatever. Like,
Uh-huh.
but you know, you still got to just try your best and just be ready for the next one. You know,
Mm-hmm,
that's
mm-hmm.
definitely a part of it.
Yeah, it's about riding the wave, I guess. It's neat, I think, and very like reflective of you as a person, right? That you thought about that like as a valuable resource that you weren't going to waste, right? It's very like respectful of the person who's giving you a shot, which I think yeah, just like speaks really well of you, and is like, when you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's like, I believe that would be his approach to this, right? It's like, it's a very Captain Hoppa thing, so super cool. Um, what about like people in the chat being jerks, right? Because as you get more, right, like that 800 viewer raid is a little bit different than just you and your kind of regulars, right? Like, how do you think about that? What's your approach like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you know, it's probably going to be a challenge for a while, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also just like, look, man, we don't do that here.
Yep.
Or it's like, look, dog, don't tell me to change unit compositions. Like,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of it is education, and some
Mm-hmm.
people aren't going to like that. They're gonna
Right.
be like, "Oh, you're playing wrong." I'm like, dude, I'm driving this car the best I can. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
we're like, I was thinking about this too the other day, where it's like backseat gaming. It's like my hands are on the wheel, and I am, like you're like on a road trip, and like your dad is lost, and the kids are like, you should have turned left back there. It's
Yeah.
like I'm trying to save us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying my best.
Right.
And a lot of it is like education. And it's like, look, buddy, like I know that there are a lot of things not ideal with my gameplay, but we're trying to hit the big bullet points. We're
Right.
trying to hit the big ones. And sometimes we'll hit them, sometimes we won't. That's why we hit the rewind button,
Yeah.
like and it's also just not making the same mistake twice,
Mm-hmm.
and you just got to try your best. And there is more education, but it's also the people who come back and the people who stick around are usually pretty chill, and they get it. And even if I have a big throw, they still type GG in my chat, and I'm like, hey man, I appreciate you watching that game.
Yep. Yep. Very cool, man. All right. Well, I wanna do one more, and I thought I would kind of close this off on a fun one. Um, I want to talk about Ravagers, dude. Can we? Because it 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 has felt to me for a while, right? Like, I mean, you and I played a pretty intense show match a while back, and I was feeling it then, right? Um, and I watch your stream and stuff, and I've been feeling it for a while, and it reached a zenith the other day. Um, it's starting to feel like, to me at least, like this is your thing, dude, is hitting biles with Ravagers that are just like, go easy on them. Come on, Captain Hop, you can't do it to him. So
I mean, it's fantastic.
yeah, if somebody can dig this clip up too. I saw Helium Bunny and Lord Cranial dug up the other one that I was talking about, the video we mentioned earlier. If anybody can manifest this Viking clip, I would love to share that with the world. And for the YouTube people, I'll put these links down there too. But yeah, like, okay, I gotta know, like, was this a conscious decision? Were you like, I love this unit and I want to just be like way above average for my MMR at using this? Or did it happen on accident? Like, how did this come about?
um I mean, I think the deepest origin is I used to watch a lot of the Game Time stream,
Mm-hmm.
and much like Game Time, I am a roachy boy at heart. I love making roaches, and if you make enough Ravagers, you do land some pretty amazing biles if you keep trying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't post my misses onto Twitter, but
Yep.
I post all of my hits onto
Uh-huh.
Twitter. So there was one where I killed like 8 medevacs with just corrosive bile,
I
which was
forgot
like
about that one. Yeah.
and again, I have immortalized it into GIF form, and I can look at it whenever I feel sad or whatever. But also, like in the game, I wasn't expecting to kill 8 medevacs.
Right.
I just did, and it's hilarious because I think the raw Twitch clip, I don't even, my face doesn't even move. Like I'm fighting with my army, and I just bile like I bile, and I managed to kill 8 medevacs. And then I watched the replay, I'm like, oh, where did his medevacs go?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. I totally get what you mean, right? Where it's like, I just like doing this. I just kind of use these, and like every now and then you have these bright moments, but I do feel like, again, you're selling yourself short, right? Because like, the fact that you're using it, I mean, maybe not on cooldown, that might be overstating it, right? Because it might not even be correct to use the ability on cooldown, but like the fact that you have in your brain, like, okay, this is a thing that I can get value out of, and if I'm not doing it, I'm not getting the value out of it. And you're very conscious to do it, and I will say, having fought you, and particularly against your Ravagers, right? Like, I was not right for weeks after fighting you in terms of my prism positioning, right? Because I'm normally very aggressive in terms of where I will position that thing. Because I'm like, they shoot it, I'll move it. It'll be fine, right? not the case. If anybody ever queues against Captain Hapa, and I'm sorry, I'm giving your secrets away. Don't do it, Protosses. It is unsafe. It would be unwise for you to do this. Yeah, I for weeks afterward, I would park the thing like 4 screens away because I'm just that rattled about it. Yeah. Anyhow, I'm digressing here a bit, but I think it's a really cool aspect of your play, and I think it's neat that you have really cultivated that to that degree.
Oh yeah, I mean it's hilarious when you tell me that like I'm above average for my MMR because I have no idea,
Hmm.
and it's surprising for me to hear that. I'm just like, well, I just use it, and sometimes it works.
Right.
But that's what you got to do, And it's I'm having the same thing with like Vipers too, right? Like I'm just making
Mm.
Vipers. It's relatively new, but it's also like, well, I just need to make them, and they need to die a lot before I get the really sick blinding clouds that I'm trying to get, right? And
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
it's a repetition thing, and you got to get the reps in, and you got to try it, so that's definitely something that I think a lot of people can just make that unit that you're bad at and lose games while you're making it because
Hmm.
you will get better at it.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do.
Awesome, man. I feel like I shouldn't say any more after that. That's a perfect note for us to end on. Thank you so much for joining me for this. It's been like an awesome chat, right? Like I wanted to learn more about you, but just overall as like a, kind of sit here and talk about the game. This has been kind of fun in that regard as well. Where can folks find you, right? We've told everybody now, they know there's no more excuses. You should not be the hipster pick for streams anymore. They need to show up. So, let's dump some links in the chat, huh?
Yeah, so I stream twitch.tv/Captain Hapa, CAPT_HAPA. My Twitter is the same with the same underscore. I post a lot of memes on there and also just like little bite-size highlights and all of that stuff. It's a good time. I'm very proud of my Twitter. Honestly, it's got good memes, it's got dramatic biles and Baneling connections and short highlight reels and all that sort of stuff. So I'm very proud of how it looks. And the stream, I have a good time. I'm always down to talk about this stuff, as you can probably tell. But thanks for having me, man. It's been fun. Again, these are great conversations that we have, and I always enjoy them very, very intensely, because I do think we share a lot of similar thought processes about the game.
Yep.
And thanks for having me, man. It was
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, get in while you can. Get in on, I don't think it's the ground floor anymore, but buy your Captain Hoppa stocks before they skyrocket. This man is going places.